What? And Unscripted. You are with your hosts, Jen Saunders and Leah, spelled Ligia. Had to think. I'm like, wait, how do we? Yeah, which way do we spell it? Oh my heck! We're so happy to have you with us today. Um, our conversation should be really interesting. We're going to talk about roots. Leah brought that up to me last night or this morning. This morning, I said, "Sure, let's do it." So it is truly a live and unscripted conversation, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what comes out of it. Um, our last couple, we've had some unexpected
Yes.
and what's I had another word. Yeah, unexpected but much appreciated guests. And as far as I know, that's not going to happen today. And the grass has been already mowed and blowed, and so we should be okay that way as well. Oh my gosh! So if you're new to Live and Unscripted, this is a video podcast where we basically talk with strangers or with people that we have met who have we feel like have a really great story or just really cool life experience and things that they've learned that we would just want to share with you. Partly because I'm curious, I want to know more. I know Leah feels the same way, but also because I feel like our stories have more meaning and value when we're able to share them. So I love it. We don't ask a list of questions. We start with one, and then we let inspiration be the guide from there on out. But in conversations like today, uh, we just go with the flow. Let's get on the screen here.
Well, partly why I was thinking, because your mom was part of our live and unscripted last week.
2 weeks ago.
Was it two? No, it was your birthday
Was
last
it
week.
last week? Oh,
Yeah,
the unexpected guests were 2 days in a row.
yes, that's right. So your mom was joined in on live and unscripted, and it just really got me thinking about our roots and the lessons that our parents teach us for better or for worse, or whether it's did they teach us how we want to be and how we want to show up, and or did they teach us how we don't want to show up, and how that informs how we move through our everyday life and interactions with people. And so I just thought, I don't know, it's just been a lot on my mind about the impact that our parents have, and also the dynamic of, you and I both have children that are young adults, baby adults as you call them,
Baby
and
adults, yes.
and how that dynamic changes. So I just thought it'd be an interesting place to just kind of explore the topic, and what roots and values and what that all looks like.
I think it's fantastic. And it's really fun to learn about, for me, we interact with lots of people every day in our worlds and in our lived experience, and we think that we know them. Like as human beings, for some reason, we feel like because someone's running around in our circles, or because we've known them for a month, or we've known them for a year, sometimes even we've known them for 5 years, and we think that we know them, like we know them. And the reality is, unless you're curious and willing to actually ask the questions and find out the background and why they show up and behave in ways that they behave on all ends of the spectrum, we really don't know our people. We don't know what has informed their decisions and how they show up in their adult lives. So I love this this idea that you brought to the table, and I'm excited to. I might be a little bit nervous, but I'm excited to see what comes out of our faces. Um, so let's start how we always start, and just take a few minutes to get really present, because we do work with inspiration, and it does require a moment of just like stepping into present space, letting go of what's already happened in the day, and letting go of what we think is going to happen in the rest of the day, and just being right here, right now. And one of the ways that we do that is just simple breathing, just taking a few moments to just breathe, um, to let your heart rate slow down and come into coherence, to let your brain slow down, to let all the systems just settle in and be in a place where you can hear answers, you can be inspired, you can feel in the moment. So today's breathing, you know what, today, because I haven't thought about it at all, I'm just gonna invite you to close your eyes or take a downward gaze, whichever is most comfortable for you, and just breathe. And maybe the invitation to just breathe a little deeper and lower than you would normally breathe. So actually, an invitation to put your hand on your stomach and to feel yourself breathe all the way down into your belly instead of staying caught up here in the top of your rib cage. And just really feel what happens when you take those moments to just breathe. And if you want to think about something as you're breathing, then this is your invitation to do so. If you just want to focus on your breathing, this is your invitation to do so. Let's do it let's even just do like 30 seconds today, 30 to 45. Sometimes a minute can feel like a long time. So this is your invitation. Again, I'm going to stick my hand on my heart because I like how that feels. I like that energy there. And downward gaze or closed eyes and just breathing deep into your belly. Good. Just take a few moments longer, and when you're ready, feel free to open your eyes and just be present with us here. And I'm going to extend an invitation to you as well. To if you are not a part of if you're coming to us from LinkedIn, welcome. If you're coming to us from YouTube, welcome. If you are not a part of our Righteous Rebels Facebook group, this is an invitation to head on over there, boink, click the button, the join button, and we'll let you in, because it's also a place where you can make comments, where you can join the conversation, you can ask questions, tell us your thoughts. You can tell us how cute we look. I mean, you can put in really anything like that. What kind of a great day you're having. We would love to hear from you, is what I'm telling you, and extending an invitation to do so. That over on the Facebook group is also the place where we drop our information first, is by way of events that are going on, where you'll hear the advertisings for Live and Unscripted, or our Tuesday adventure videos, or Leah's Thursday creativity videos. That is where you'll hear about our challenges. That is where you'll get the lowdown. And we love when you bring your magic to the community. So that's an invite to go to the Righteous Rebels Facebook group. Do what, Leah?
Hit the button to join.
Wait, what's the sound?
Boink.
Boink. I like how you avoided that. Yes, hit the button, boink, and we'll let you in. Okay, with that, we do have an event coming up, a couple of things, a live in-person event on August 24th. We will be dropping that information. We're just finishing up all the details, probably by end of day or tomorrow for sure. There will be other things, other challenges and things that are associated with that event. We will also be opening up next year's river trip for 20 amazing people beginning, I believe, the beginning of September. We will open that up. And there's some surprises for those of you who take initiative and jump on board early. So with that, Leah, any other housekeeping stuff that I'm forgetting or not remembering?
I think you did a great job covering all the housekeeping.
That's good.
We'll connect more with the the event and the challenge coming up probably near the end, and share more about that and in the group. So again, if you're not a part of that, hit the boink button. This join here. Oh yes.
I'm gonna let you take the reins, because kind of like I said to you earlier, like I wasn't sure what we were going to chat about today. We're actually waiting for a couple of guests who we met over in the Jackson, Wyoming area to respond to some messages that we've sent out to them to come and be on the show. I can't wait to share their stories and to get to know them better. We had like really, really short conversations with them, and I can't wait to bring them to you. So we're waiting for them. So in the meantime, you get us, which is so exciting. And I didn't know what to do today. So Leah, tell us a little bit more, like how you want to delve into this topic of roots. And why do you feel like it's an important thing to talk about?
Well, in just getting to know ourselves, I'm going to say ourselves, but I find the question fascinating to pose to the people that you're getting to know, if they're open to that, of course. But even just to reflect in your own world, what are those influences that your family of origin have on you? Because you spend the first 7 years, your foundational forming time with them, and how some of those things that we learn so early translate in throughout our lives, and what are the things that we still carry, what are the things that we've managed to have the awareness that it's not how we want to live, and that we can honor our families where they were at, but know that we want something different. And it's just I think it's just so important to look at our roots. What?
Just you saying that takes me back to last week when we were doing this, and my mom was here sitting on the couch, and we had the discussion of like what I said at 15 of like, I'm going to do everything I can to parent differently than the way you do it.
And it's so true. Like, we say that so impassioned when we're young, but when we're actually in their position and have our own kids coming at us, and then we go to say something and our mom falls out of our mouth, or our dad falls out of our mouth, and we're like, oh my gosh, and just having that realization. And I just think it's a beautiful full circle of like recognizing that your parents are just people. They're just people, and they're doing the best that they can. And I had posed a question to a friend that I'm getting to know, and just to learn more about what are her values and how she sees her parents, and how what does she how she move in her everyday life, how is that informed by those influences. So we can start with sharing our own. I could ask you, Jen, what's something that you learned?
I see how this is gonna work.
Or and I see it from the other perspective, from the parent wanting to parent your child, and how that dynamic changes. We can just see where it goes. But since your mom was on last week, and I want to honor that space, I'll ask you, like, what's something that you really learned from your mom, that you took from just watching her and her experience, and for better or for worse, like what's something that you took from that?
You asked the hard ones first.
That was a hard one.
I my mom just sent a message across my phone. I don't think she's watching. It was a text message that said, "I love you too." Yep.
Oh, how fitting.
Somewhere she's sensing that I should maybe watch my words. Actually, that actually is something. And I mean, so let me just make a caveat first and foremost before we talk. Dang. Sometimes we go through hard things. And when I talk about my family or I talk about my parents, I love them. I love them deeply and I have big respect for them. And the job that they did as young people without manuals to their kids or how to parent other than what was the societal norms or the norms inside of the cultures that they lived in, that they did the best that they knew how to do, and that sometimes their best wasn't necessarily what we needed for our best. And even as I say that, I'm like, but at the same time it was, because it may have just taught us something in a way that was uncomfortable or that even sometimes is painful, and that it's up to us to learn the things or to have the mindset. So when I say things in regards to my family, I please know that it is from a heartfelt space and that it is stuff that I have moved through for years, and places that I'm at peace with. Sometimes I still find places that are charged as far as our interactions go. But I love what my parents taught me on all ends of the spectrum. Um, I really, yeah. When speaking of words, I learned to be mindful of my words. I grew up in a culture where we were taught to respect our parents and obey them, listen, like that. Really the Ten Commandments, and my mom grew up with my grandfather was a follow the rules kind of guy, and that's how she grew up and that's how she learned to parent. And so I myself feel like I had very hands-on parents. Felt like there was a lot of rules. I was a good kid, um, and I did break them a few times or maybe a lot of times. And so for me, I think I I look back at that, and I look at how I parented my own kids. And I think as a kid, I felt like I didn't have a lot of choice, and that it really just had to listen to what my parents said and do what they said. And I wanted my kids to have choice. So, at 15, when I stood up and said to my mom, I'm gonna do it just different than you do it. I had to make damn sure that I did it different, that I learned some different tools, and that I took what my mom gave me, and by way of what's the word, of loving me in all of the ways that she knew how to do. Um, when I was 15, so I'm the oldest of four, and then I'm the oldest of seven. So when I was 15, my mom had a little brother, and when I was 17, she had twins, and I got a new brother and sister. So my mom was really occupied with taking care of kids and dealing with a family that was a little dysfunctional or a lot at times. And so um, what I learned is that my mom did the best she knew how to do, that she loved us in the ways that she knew how to do while coping and dealing with all of the stuff of a blended family and a step family and half all of the things. And um, it's really interesting to watch how, I think this is the one thing, is to not judge myself so harshly as a parent. Because I still watch her judge herself. Okay, your turn.
My turn. Is the question on me? Is that what you mean?
So I think I don't. I'm like, I don't even know that I'm answering your question because it feels like it's so big. But I think that's the biggest thing probably. And it's just coming to me now is, my gosh, be easy. Be easy on yourself as a parent and trust that you're doing the best that you know how to do. And if you don't feel like it's good enough, then get out there and find some tools. Get out there and find someone who can teach you how to do it differently, or how to manage anger, or how to manage emotions, your own emotions, or to do your own healing, so that you can be more gentle on yourself. I mean, my mom's family's all grown, and I still watch, and it's painful.
It's so interesting you say that, just the judgment, because it's easy to get in that space of did I do enough? Was I enough for them? Did I teach them enough? Did I tell them enough? And there's always the looking back that I could have done it differently. And I just appreciate that, um, in families, I think, who was it? Someone had said to me a few weeks ago, they were talking about their teenager, and how they don't need them anymore. And I just thought, that's so not true. They don't need their everyday basic needs looked after. But I look at my relationship with my mom, and growing up, I didn't feel like I really had, my mom, just because she was trying to navigate and survive her own situation. And um, but now I feel like in the last few years I've had my mom in so many more ways. And maybe that's just by design, and that she can be there. In the last 5 years, I was really doing more of my art and murals, and just really leaning into the things that fed my soul, and wanting to build career out of it. And how it felt like out of nowhere that she was just pouring into me with all this love and support and encouragement. And just it just gives me goosebumps to to think of it, because um I didn't I don't think she was in a space to give, before I started experiencing that with her. And I just, when I needed it, like when I really needed it, she was there. And I look at how our relationship has grown in the last few years, and just appreciating um her journey and my journey, and how we can come together and share in those experiences. And um when you're talking about judging ourselves, I think of when I had my daughter. I had her quite young, and because I wanted to do things so different from how I grew up, um, I felt like paralyzed. Like, I remember just at times just crying, like, I don't want to screw this up, and just being like
Okay.
paralyzed with the fear that I'm going to screw up this little person, and they're relying on me. And like that's huge. Um, and especially if you're wanting to do it different, and then just realizing how many tools are all around us if we pay attention. In how I look to my friend Kelly, and how she interacted with her little one. She had a little girl 6 months older. And and you just take little pieces from different places. And um and even from my growing up, because it's not all bad. There was a lot of, I think, of service, and thinking of others, um and just those pieces that I really value. I think the one thing that really sparked me, though, that I got from my mom, was how she came alive when she was doing something creative, whether it was decorating the house for Christmas. Like, we lived at, I think it was White Rose, a craft store at the time. And just how she came to life and put things together. She loved to decorate, and she loved to do ceramics. And I appreciated that she, when she could, she took that time to explore some of those places in herself.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing out those pieces as you're talking. I'm like, other things that I really took from my mom was a love of music, and my mom has an amazing voice. Like, she just, as a teenager, she got to be in a band, and I just, I looked up to that kind of stuff, and I wanted to be like her in those ways. And um, so the love of music, and she carried on like the love of holidays, and gathering of family, and those things that are so important, um, that she brought down from my grandparents, and that were important to her. And so I love those pieces from her as well. And it wasn't not like, I remember being a kid and we would gather together with our cousins, and it was the greatest thing to like be together as this big family, and like these built-in best friends, and those moments like watching the Black Stallion and having popcorn, and watching, Chariots of Fire, and all of those things stick with me. And those are things that I want to carry on, to my own kids as well. Um, and so I love those pieces. And, I thinking, my my mom's a great lady, and she's wise. She's wise. I would think she probably thinks of herself as the black sheep in her family, because she does things a little differently. She thinks differently. She's more willing to like push the buttons. And and she passed that down to her kids, knowingly or unknowingly. She passed that down to her kids, and her kids have given her lots of opportunity to practice, um, stretching her belief system, stretching her patience, stomping on her heart. uh, are the things that her kids have allowed her. I'm using the word allowed her to experience and grow from, very much go against. I have a brother who spent 9 years in a federal prison. Um, I I look back at some of the things that we did, and myself, I tested the bounds of the religion that we grew up in, and my sexuality, and all of those things. Like we've done things that have pushed my mom to the edges. And so I look at how she's handled all of that, and I just appreciate who she is. And we've had our moments. Like the last 10 years, we've had our moments of, having to stand at arm's length in order to be okay with each other, and, um, to not hurt each other as much. And I just appreciate how she continues to move through it, and continues to teach me to move through it. But then remembering, I love the pieces of like, oh yeah, the music, and the holidays, and just getting together, the gathering pieces, that means a lot to me. And it's something that I want to carry on. And it's part of why, I think it's part of why I love building this community, because not everybody has roots that they want to go back to, or that feel comfortable for them, or that feel safe for them. And we build family in other places. And so it's part of what Rebels is.
I just, as you're talking, I'm remembering your mom popping on and sharing her thoughts, and I
And
just
then popping out.
appreciate, yeah, I just appreciated her willingness to be seen, to be heard, and just to share the things that she's learned, and that she continues to learn, and just explore some of those spaces, and do it, just do it unapologetically, and
Well,
I appreciate that.
yeah, and I love those pieces too, because again, knowingly or unknowingly, she passed that down. I think to, I think most of her kids have it. Some are more willing to practice it more openly and boldly than others. And I have a brother who, we don't. I would say we don't have like a really close knit family. We don't call each other all the time. We don't. I don't really know the lives of my siblings closely. Could I call them and change that? Absolutely. I'm aware of that. For those of you who just like hollered at me, um, but I spent some time with this brother. He's like 3 years younger than I am, 3.5, and I was like, oh my gosh, we are so related, and we don't hang out that much together, but you do that thing that I do, and that comes from our mom. And oh my gosh, you have that thing that dad does. Like, it was really fun to see all of the idiosyncrasies that we share. They're like, oh, dang. And I appreciate that when she is able to show that I'm like, yep, yep, I know from where that comes inside of myself.
It's pretty cool when we see those pieces of ourselves. When we see, that we're not that different from, because like we're like, I don't want to be anything. I know that's how I felt, and but then to see the humanity of it, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful full circle. So, okay, so we played around in the world of mom. So what about dad? What's something dad imparted to you that you
Yeah.
carry with you?
This is what I'm finding interesting about that particular question is I haven't lived with my dad since I was 8 years old. My dad was my knight in shining armor. I don't know if he knows that, but he was, still is. I still just, he's just a cool dude. My dad was like tenacity and intestinal fortitude. They just like get in and get it done. He was a go getter. He was adventurous. He loves the outdoors. I really think my love of nature and outdoors and all of that comes from my dad. My dad's been pulled over for driving too slow because they thought he just was observing nature, in an evening or in the foothills. And um, I remember my dad teaching us the skills of just like stick to itiveness. And I remember I have so many pictures of watching my dad, seeing him from like his rear end down because they were over the edges of vehicles, fixing them like inside, doing the things. And I actually wish I would have learned some of those things from him, or that I would have had more opportunity to do so. Um, Watching how my dad moved through pain. Seriously, why am I doing this today? Because it's heartfelt, it's deep. It's stuff I don't talk about a lot. My dad would like sing in the car. Like, love of music, I think, also comes from my dad. The Beach Boys. Um, there's that song. There's a song like if you're going through hell, just keep going. Like, I can't think of the words at the moment. Listening to my dad sing that song. Um, just watching him do things differently, because he also went against the grain of his culture and the things that he was taught growing up. And I love the wisdom that he imparts, like in moments when you're not expecting it, and it's just always kind of quiet. um I have tendencies, like, some of the perfectionistic stuff that I exhibit comes from my dad, and I didn't realize this till just recently. So I do this thing where I fold napkins and I have them close by. And my dad does that. I realized that the other day. I'm like, oh, that just comes through bloodlines. So some of my stuff that way I can like attribute to my dad and be like, okay. Um, and then just again, just that stick to itiveness. He went to college as an older person, and not older. He was, I don't know, late 20s, probably early 30s. And then that just he worked hard. He taught us how to work hard and how to love that, but also how to play.
It's awesome. It makes me think, why is it we don't visit those places more often and remember, and really just as a way of remembering where we came from and all the things. It's to honor them, but also honor our own journey through them. And I think we were talking about, I think it was a video about the call, and I think of, what our parents bring us into this world, and it's like we continue on their journey, whether, um I think of just like growing up, my parents came from another country. I was born in Nicaragua, and they came up from Canada with limited English, and escaping. There was a civil war going on in Nicaragua at the time, and I think it was like after they found they were playing with me. I was like maybe a year old, and they went to put me down for a nap, and there was a bullet in my crib, and that was like a turning point for them to like, okay, we're gonna take this giant leap into a foreign country. And um, I think about that a lot, and how challenging that is to, we I moved a city, and that feels like, oh my gosh, like you have to make
Right.
new friends, new community, new systems, like all that stuff. But then to move to a whole new country where the culture is different, the language is different, you don't have the family support, um, you don't have the just the knowing of how things work. And it I think when I think of my dad, I think of his willingness to jump into things before he's ready, and how, he would apply to jobs. And there was this one story always sticks out to me, that he applied for this job. It was a supervisor for something, and he's at this job, and these I don't remember what it was, but I just remember that he had to be able to color differentiate, so things went in the right way. And after a few days, his supervisor is coming to him, and he's like, are you colorblind? Like, tell me what that color is. And he is colorblind. So um I just admire his willingness to jump in and figure things out as he goes. And I never really thought of it that way until this moment, um, of that. Like, he came to Canada, and he didn't have a job lined up. My mom, I remember as kids, we were sitting in the car waiting for him at an appointment, and we saw someone in like a mascot suit, and my brother and I were making fun of this person, and my mom, like, she scolded us like, how dare you, your dad started in a chicken suit so we could eat, so you have no right to judge anyone where they're at. And just, it gave me a new appreciation and respect for what he did, and he did whatever he needed to do to make things happen. I remember he had a newspaper route in the morning, like 4:30 to before we started school, and then he'd come home, shower, and get ready to go to his sales job and be gone all day, in that field. And yet he still, made time to take us and play baseball in the field, or like, he was very hands-on, and he wanted to do stuff. And like, I think that's where I get, make the most of your day. My older kids were going to Wonderland, and I was stressing out because it's like almost 10 o'clock and they haven't left yet. Whereas growing up, like by 7 o'clock, we've got the cooler packed, we've got our extra clothes, but like we are ready and on the road by 7. So we're there when it opens, like,
Right.
just to make the most of the day. And a few years ago, we went to Disneyland with him, and my small kids, and it was just funny, like, okay, we got to get to the next event, and this show started. Like, he was already planning the whole day, and I just found it fascinating how I just never thought of those things. So um yeah, definitely work ethic, um doing things that you don't have to be 100% qualified to do them, and just knowing that you'll figure it out along the way.
Well,
So
and as I'm listening to you, because you and I know more of the full backstories of each other's backstories because we've asked the questions and we've done the things. And I'm thinking about things also that would have been really cool to know. And maybe it's how we change parenting a little bit, and we make being human more real, and our roots to have more meaning instead of being ashamed of them or ashamed of some of the behaviors or things that we did as a kid, to be seen or heard, or to feel like we have value or meaning in our life as we're growing through these things. And I think, as I'm standing here listening to you and thinking about my own history and my own roots, thinking, it would have been cool to hear some of the things that, like, I'm like, there's so much I would like to know about my parents that we just didn't talk about or haven't talked about, and to like change the history of that, of talking more about, like, it might, like, I'm thinking I have 18 things going through my head right now. Like, it might have made some of my experiences and things that I wanted, behaviors that I exhibited, more easily understood had my parents said, yeah, when I was a kid, like, this is the kind of trouble that I got in, and I this is why I did it. I wanted attention, and you know what, there's better ways to get attention. And I think would help us understand ourselves better, and some of the things that we pick up or that just come through bloodlines, and that we're going to pass on to our own kids, so that I just think those conversations would be amazing. Like, as a kid, I was shy, I was quiet. Um, I was probably a goody two shoes, but I was like quiet trouble. I, you know, I, and because I wanted attention, and being the oldest, I have to set an example. I have to watch out for all those other hooligans. And, but I, I would feign injury. And sometimes I look back on that and I'm like, oh, I want to be so embarrassed, and I want to be so ashamed. And the reality is, when I look back, I'm like, I just wanted attention. And we get attention. We still do this as adults until we learn how to do it differently. We will do the things to get attention, no matter what it is, no matter what the kind of attention is, because it's attention. And I look back on what I practiced the habit of stealing, and I'm not proud of that, but it was a way of like trying to get somebody's to look at me and be like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on with you?" And um, I think it would be, in my opinion, like sharing some of those things with our kids, so they have, one, a better understanding of us, and maybe why we show up the way we do, why I chose to be more of a hands-off parent, and to allow my kids to really have choice, and to stand back and watch, and build a container that they could safely make mistakes in, and me be okay with it. It's so that they have the attention that they might need, um, or want, without having to exhibit more unhealthy behaviors. And as I'm hearing you talk, I think, I'm listening. I love the story that you share of your mom scolding you about making fun of someone in a mascot suit, because, and then saying to you, like, hey, your dad, like, this is part of our history too. And that, I just think if we would be more open with those things, we all want better for our kids, but I think part of that being better and having healthy roots is sharing the things that are hard or that feel shameful, and just taking that shame and that discomfort out of them, and being like, this is a part of being human. This is just part of learning and growing and accomplishing. And I don't know, I'm gonna get off my soap.
No, I I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think of, as a kid, I never knew why. I would always ask the questions, and
Right,
it was like, this is how it is, and
because I
that's
said
it.
so,
Yeah, and you never
or because
understood
God said
why.
so.
Yeah. But like, how frustrating. How can I improve myself, or improve? Sometimes, like, you just get in trouble and you didn't even know why, and you were supposed to know. And, why do I feel like this, or why do we do things that way? And it was never really talked about. And with my kids, I've gotten that criticism of, like, you explain things too much, but I feel like you can well, it
Yeah,
because it's from people who were raised that way. You do what I say, and you don't question me. But I invited those questions because I wanted my kids to understand. It's like, I said no because I said no. But there are drawbacks to that, because it really makes you challenge, like when they get to a place where I don't there are moments where it feels like talking back, but there's other moments where there's just a genuine wanting to know why. And then sometimes I would have to reevaluate my no, because they challenged my no and my
They
reason.
present you with your
Yeah,
own thinking.
but I didn't feel threatened, maybe frustrated, because sometimes my no came from, I don't want to deal with this now. And
Right?
then learning to say, I don't have the space for this now. My answer is no until I have time to think about it. And just, giving them space to it's challenging though, Jen, because I've been talked out of stuff because they just had a really good argument and I couldn't defend it, right?
Right?
And
But you taught them that. Like
honor
you taught
that.
them to, and I love that give and take, because again, it's honoring their growth and the
Yeah.
things that you're teaching them, and
Or
saying,
their own thought process, that it doesn't
yes,
have to be exactly how I'm teaching them. And
yes,
you know, I'm very open with my especially with my daughter, just because she went through a lot of struggles in her teens, and just I wanted her to know that she wasn't alone, that I couldn't save her from it, but that, these are some things that I went through that maybe you can learn from. And just the level of self-awareness that she has now, like, blows my mind, because we've had those conversations. And we look at I look at how she engages in conversation with, in I'm going to call them disagreements or arguments, but she doesn't do it from a place of I have to be right. She does it from a place of, this is how I'm feeling. And she's assertive, and she can say how she feels, and say, this is why I'm doing this, and how I want to communicate. And I'm not coming to you with this because I want to argue, but because I want to know how we can move through this better. And
right.
I just really admire how she works through some of that stuff, and um that she can, just having that awareness.
I love
So,
that. And you talk about that. And I think about my own kids who are about to be 27 and 25. And it's like, holy cow, I'm watching them grow. And I have that sweet little grandbaby. And I think of my own kids back at that stage, and how I used to, love watching their hands and their feet, and watching how they grew and how they interacted with the world, and then where they're at now. And this, like actually being proud of how I parented. Was I perfect? Absolutely not. I have many just like mom loser moments. But again, I did the best that I knew how to do in those moments, and given my own experience and learning to, be responsive versus reactive to some of their behavior. And then the learning of, like, oh my gosh, they're showing me something, like their behavior is showing me something. And then just to watch how they are as adults, and knowing that I've taught them to trust themselves first and foremost over anyone, including me. That I don't know their hearts. We talked about potential. I can think of the potential that I may have had for them, or the ideas of how. And but you just when I can just let go of all of that and I just watch them, I'm just honored to be their parent, and to be a part of their lives in the ways I get to, and to see how they move through their worlds. Again, you're talking about your daughter, and how she communicates, and watching the same thing with my own kids, especially my oldest. I'm blown away. I'm blown away by how they have taken their experience and their roots, and recognized some of the unhealthy ones that have happened, and how they want to, if they're choosing to, go back and heal those and talk about them, and then how they're moving forward with the healthier ones. And it's incredible.
it
It's
is. It's really fun. And I just think, when are those moments, like, When was it the moment, Jen, that you saw your parents as like people? And I think, you know, I think of that for my kids, and when that moment will be, and you know how I discovered those moments, and I feel like mine didn't come probably till like in the last 5 6 years that I really like appreciated my parents' journeys, and just what it really took. Like, I think that's the point where you experience enough life that it humbles you. It
Right?
humbles you in ways
Yeah.
that you've never been humbled. So you
I was
almost forces you to look
probably,
at it a different way.
yeah, I was probably in my late 20s, maybe pushing 30 when I remember sitting in my basement. I lived in the Sugar Salem area of Idaho, and I was in my basement. We were getting ready to move, so dejunking. I still had boxes of stuff from college and papers, and it was interesting how some of the stuff I would come across, and there would be this touch of my parents' hand in that part of my life, or in um, an interaction that I had had with them, and just how all of that started to move and shift in me in ways that it just never had before. And just like you talked about, that just that deep appreciation of like their history and their stories and their own roots, and like, oh my gosh, like these were people too, just like me. Like they were just trying to figure it out just like I am. And that I loved that deepening moment. And it changes how you look at them, and what their experiences were too.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like we could go on with this, but I think we're at the top of our hour. So,
Already.
yeah, I know, right? And I think I would just like to wrap up today's discussion with an invitation to the listener. Like, what is it that your parents taught you, and you know how has it in how has it informed how you move through your world? And I'm super distracted right now because
I'm
I've
like, I
got,
see Marcos.
yeah, I see a soaking wet kid behind me. So I'm gonna give it to you.
So I appreciate you talking about that, and it made me think of a couple of things that Leah and I have worked on together. One being the journal, a way to just go back, and this is called my Revelations Journal. You can purchase it on Amazon, and just all the cool things in here that you can go back and remember for yourself, or get in touch with your root yourself, or just because it's a really cool thing to have in your presence. There's this. But then I know this is a topic that really means a lot to Leah, and she loved it so much she actually put it in a book called Remember When. And I know that this was created for a different purpose, um, which we've talked about before. Um, a parent or a grandmother who had Alzheimer's, and just all the things. But it's, as we have talked about it, I think it's super helpful in what we're talking about right now, like just understanding people's roots and asking the questions. And in this book, Remember When, Leah's created a beautiful way for you to take out the scariness of asking questions, or like, what do I even ask? Or it's all right here. And you can purchase this on Amazon as well. Leah, you'll put the link in the comments, right?
You know what I love about Remember When, though, because it's such a great
Besides the elephant blowing a pink bubble in the glasses.
it's such a great mood shifter. Like when we get back into some of those memories and the smiles that creep on people's faces, and just the how it triggers other moments that have had meaning and value. And it could have just happened last week, and it's just especially if it's a shared experience, and how that energy exchange happens, and it's just knowing your people on a different level. And I love that you brought that up.
Well, and you're welcome. I love that piece of work, and I know the backstory, and I love the story of how it came about, and how quickly, like it was really inspired, how quickly it came about. And the mood shifter, I had a thought. Um, oh, just how it requires something different of us as a person. It actually requires us to be a little bit rebellious. And in that we have to be willing to feel. We have to feel inside of ourselves in order to ask some of the questions or to go back and remember or to see our people differently. It causes us to feel, and feeling can be super rebellious and something that we try really hard not to do, whether we know it or not. And I think that's part of what the roots conversation is all about, is just learning to feel and to not be ashamed of it and to cry in front of everybody, and because you feel it so deeply. And so I think that's my challenge to you today is, just check in with yourself. Where are you actually feeling? Where are you willing to feel? Where are you willing to feel differently or more deeply in order to understand, one, yourself first, and then the people who are in your circles, the people who are in your families, and those that influence your lived experience. This has been fun. Thanks, Leah. Again, I never know what it's gonna turn out when it's like this, and thanks for holding space.
That's the whole thing of Live and Unscripted.
It's why
You're frozen, or I'm frozen.
Almost every time. Now you're unfrozen.
Okay.
Maybe we were both frozen. So to you who watched us today, we just say thank you. We would love to hear your comments. We would love to hear about your roots. We also would love to hear about topics that you would love us to just get on and have a little chit chat about. Or if you know someone who has a great story and has learned some cool things that you would like to know more about, that you think our audience or the world would like to know about, reach out and let us know, and so that we can make contact there. Is there a live creativity thing tomorrow, Leah? Or
yes, there is. So if you want to join in or just be part of the conversation of what creativity can be in your world, we'll be on tomorrow. And I think we also have a challenge coming up about feeding ourselves, and it's kind of to lead up to the August 24th outdoor kitchen awesomeness event that we're doing with Chef Jeff.
Jeff. I met Jeff in college. Jeff is an amazing soul. I've known his wife since 5th grade.
Yep. So we're gonna be doing a challenge leading up to that, and how we feed ourselves, and touch on the 9 foundations of health. And so look for that in the Facebook group. And if you're not part of that, Jen, what do they do?
Boink. Hit the join button, tap the join button, and we'll let you in. We'd love to hear what you have to say, and be a part of the magic that you bring to our community and to the world. Wow, thanks for being here. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for watching. Thanks for staying tuned. Thanks for being amazing. Leah, thanks for the conversation topic. It was awesome.
Thanks.
And with that, we have another appointment. So remember, be bold. Be brave.
Be brave.
Be a rebel.
Be a rebel.
All right. We love you guys. We'll see you next week for another edition of Live and Unscripted.